Just let it in.
And welcome to it. I'm your host, Jon Justice. Glad you're with another episode this week. If you're enjoying the show on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to the channel. And if you're listening on a podcast, whatever podcast platform that might be sure to subscribe to it there. You can always email me, TalkShowNerd@gmail.com. I'm going to do my rant, and I haven't done this in quite a long time. If I worked for Lucasfilm or Disney, I would make it my mission to not be so secretive when it comes to future projects. We get all this information that gets leaked out, right? Doing that thing with my fingers. I think a lot of this is intentionally put out by various outlets instead of coming officially from Lucasfilm. And I think they should release it officially from Lucasfilm. But when we have these projects in development and they're so cagey to go and give out any specific details relating to plot lines, relating to time frames, there is information that you could give to the general public without spoiling anything about the potential upcoming release, but that could spark excitement within the fandom and speculation that I am very much, and have always been the opinion, is one of the keys to maintaining the franchise, and that is the ability for fans to go listen to or produce podcasts and speculate about the stories that are being told. I thought the Skeleton Crew was fantastic. Unfortunately, there's not much else to do when it comes to the story to speculate on because it was so self-contained. Now, there's a level where that being self-contained for Skeleton Crew lends itself very well to the show, where it's not bogged down by being attached to anything else. But at the same time, there's also something missing in that, one, we don't know if we're going to get a season 2. And 2, when it comes to the speculation of the show or further commentary about it, there's really nowhere to go because it's not attached to anything outside of the story that it told, and so there's no real way to know. You could talk about Jon Justice, but you don't really have any sort of path to go on to speculate on that further. Listen, I say all of this because there's new reporting out now, quotes from Daisy Ridley, about her pending new Jedi Order film. And obviously Daisy Ridley knows how to play this game of only letting so much out into the public. But I wish that they would be a little bit more hands-off so that we can get a little bit more detail into these projects that are being worked on. But that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the news item this week here on, not Depeche Mode. I did that podcast a moment ago. On a Star Wars show here.
Something.
This is what happens when I do the show live.
Inside me has always been there. But now it's awake. And I need help.
All right. Daisy Ridley may have gotten her start to acting in the early 2010s with small roles in various shorts and TV shows, but it wasn't until 2015 when she stepped into the role that would change her life forever. Of course, we're talking about Rey in Star Wars The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and then The Rise of Skywalker. After the controversial reception of Episode 9, most thought we'd never see Rey again. However, in 2023, there was an announcement that she would return to lead a new Jedi Order movie with director Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy. Now, in a recent interview with Collider, in promoting her new upcoming film Cleaner, which I'm looking forward to seeing, Daisy Ridley spoke about her involvement behind the camera as a potential producer in her upcoming Star Wars flick, as well as how things are different this time around. Daisy Ridley said this: "I don't know that I'd be a producer on it, but I certainly have been very involved. I am involved, well, not very involved, but I'm involved in as much as I know what's going on. I know the story. I know what's going on with the script. I'm aware of all of that. I think what's been really wonderful over the last few years is being more involved from start to finish, really coming to set knowing this is the absolute best way that we can tell this story. These are the best actors for the job, the best crew for the job. Having that confidence is so lovely. And it's not that I didn't have that before, but I'm much more cognizant of it now. So in a way, I'm looking forward to turning up really knowing the ins and outs of what the journey has been, and we're arriving at the absolute best place in particular to tell this story. This is fairly typical commentary for an individual who was involved in this major franchise and has been a part of this project that has been now teased for the past couple of years and still has yet to go into production. So none of these comments surprise me all that much. I'm hopeful that because of the delay that the writers and those involved in this film have had enough time to really nail down this story that Daisy Ridley has also been very public about saying is a really good story. Star Wars needs this movie specifically to be successful. I've got my trepidations of how successful The Mandalorian and Grogu is going to be. And really that's going to be dependent on how much money they end up spending on that film that we're supposed to see next year and what the studio's expectation is for it, being that essentially this is just a live-action version of what would have been Season 4 of The Mandalorian. No, the bread and butter, the future of the franchise right now rests with Rey and having a story adjacent to the saga that gained so much popularity, even despite the controversies surrounding the sequel trilogy. Getting back to this article, it would not be in Ridley's character to bash production and creative minds prior Star Wars sets that she's worked on, but it certainly sounds like she's happy to be more involved with bringing life to Rey on the big screen. Sounds like Ridley won't earn a producer credit for the new Jedi Order movie, but her work behind the camera is a stepping stone that will likely help her earn a producing credit in the future, if it's something she's ever interested in. The sequel trilogy may not have gone out on a high note, but if Ridley is confident in the direction it's heading, then Star Wars fans have every reason to be confident and excited. So, the movie The Cleaner, by the way, if you haven't seen it, seems like an action film. And I think this is a great vehicle for Daisy Ridley. I know she's done a lot more serious roles and period pieces since doing Star Wars, but she has amazing physicality, especially in The Rise of Skywalker with her lightsaber work. Her climbing on the wreckage of the Death Star 2. Again, she just has a really interesting physicality to her that lends itself to action. So that's one of the reasons why, because Rey Skywalker is one of my favorite Star Wars characters. I'd be more interested in hearing more Rey Skywalker stories than I would be Luke Skywalker stories, even if it was played by another actor. That's just me personally, and probably sacrilege for a lot of people. But the article goes on to ask who else could appear in the New Order movie, other than Daisy Ridley being confirmed to reprise her role as Rey. Few details are known about the new Jedi Order movie at this time. Fans have speculated that Grogu, previously in the 3 seasons of The Mandalorian and in the upcoming film, could feature as one of Rey's pupils, but is nothing more than speculation at this point. Fans do remain hopeful that there's a place for John Boyega and even Oscar Isaac. And with Star Wars Celebration around the corner and the announcement of, say, Oscar Isaac showing up, my guess is there's going to be further details about this new Jedi Order film, much like there was at the last Celebration. I still don't think that Charmin Obaid-Chinoy is going to be the director of this movie. I think there's too much writing on this film to hand the reins over to somebody that's that inexperienced in a major blockbuster like this. Ridley's new Jedi Order movie does not yet have an official release date, but in Cleaner, it's coming to theaters on February 21st. Again, and I'm looking forward to that. As always, love to hear from you. TalkShowNerd at gmail.com and your thoughts.
I need someone to show me my place in all this.
First off, we hear from friend of the show, Ben, who writes this. Been a while since I'd emailed you about Star Wars. Here's some random thoughts going through my head. The Skeleton Crew. Really enjoyed the show. My 14-year-old son and I watched it together, and he enjoyed it too. A little disappointed with the ending. I was waiting for some surprise or seeing Na would escape or get taken away in cuffs. Also hoping that the supervisor would have been Tak Renaud. That once he found on At-Atten, he stayed and never left. When it comes to films and Disney Plus frustration, it is really frustrating that we don't have a new film even in production. If what is being reported about the Mandalorian and Grogu film is true, it doesn't excite me. I was hoping it would tie into the Ahsoka series and wrap up the Thrawn plotline. I think it might still tie in with the Ahsoka series, and we're still expected to get that wrapping up of the Mandoverse sort of endgame style film from Dave Filoni. I think that's going to be contingent on The Mandalorian and Grogu, which has been in production for quite a while and is due out next year. What's been really frustrating about what Star Wars is putting out on Disney Plus is the production quality. I think of what HBO does for its series and wonder why Disney can't do the same. They are so afraid of taking a risk that it actually is making things worse for the fans. There is a lot of opportunity with Episode 10 or going back to the very early years where the Sith were ruling on Corbijn and battling Jedi. The Acolyte had potential. The plot was good, but the execution and the production quality was terrible. I even think of the short stories that we get from Star Wars Visions and how in a 15-minute story we get a great plot and interesting characters. One of those could easily be turned into a miniseries or a movie made just for Disney+. You read a listener letter from your February 6th episode about telling side stories for non-characters. I think this would be another good idea for Disney Plus movie or a miniseries. Star Wars does a good job of this in their books. One that I always think of is the book Battlefront Twilight Company. Yep. The governor of Hydoral Prime defected to the Twilight Company. Twilight Company ends up on Hoth during the rebels' escape. She thinks Darth Vader is there for her. In the book, she turns herself into Vader, confessing what she has done and begs for her life, and her punishment be to exile her. Vader does a chokehold on her, and he asks her where Skywalker is. Most likely has no idea who the woman is. I think it's an interesting insight of a character that thinks she is important in the galaxy, but has no idea what is really going on. Keep up the good work on the podcast, Ben. Fantastic thoughts, Ben, and commentary. I really appreciate it, and glad you're still listening. 88 Strange 88 writes this: getting ready to watch Bad Batch and Skeleton Crew for the first time. Loved Mando 1 and 2. Season 3 was meh. Obi-Wan and Boba Fett was really disappointing. Acolyte was the worst, and Andor was the best. I haven't rewatched the films in a very long time. The Last Jedi should be erased from everyone's memory. What a piece of garbage. Well, you are entitled to your opinion, but I disagree. And lastly, Across the Stars writes this: people hate these films because the story from start to finish was awful. They made Han and Leia's only child the bad guy, as if the character of Leia hadn't already suffered enough with everything she'd been through. Then they had Han do a total reversal of his character arc by sending him back to square one because of said son. Same with Luke. And the fact that they had Luke even thinking about murdering his own nephew, despite the fact that he refused to kill his father, was just ridiculous. And then there's the issue of them not putting the trio together even for one scene. And then by the end of the trilogy, the entire Skywalker solo family is dead. And they had the nerve, the absolute audacity to give Rey the Skywalker name, as if that was going to fix it all. I'm still not over it. Probably never will be. I'm so jaded by that trilogy that I've pretty much stopped caring about anything Star Wars. I am not alone. Many people feel this way. This is why I think bringing Rey into any movie is a huge mistake. I think it will be a monumental flop. The Star Wars audience of today is not the same audience of 2015. Of course, I preface all of this by saying it's just my opinion. I understand there are people who love the sequel trilogy, and that maybe the movie will do great, but it just won't be for me. Anyways, great show as always, John. Thank you, Across the Stars. I always appreciate your opinion, even if we do disagree. Listen, and that wraps up the show for this week. Thank you so much for checking it out, as always. I hope you'll take a moment and also check out my science fiction space opera series, EMBARK. A stargazer, a headstrong and gifted pilot, a hardened former military officer, and a tech geek, along with a ship a whisperer. When it comes to motley crews, the Anniversary has most starships beat. But as a ruthless corporate madman bent on tyranny attempts to exploit a apocalyptic industrial accident, it might fall to this ragtag band of unlikely heroes to save Earth's evacuees from annihilation if they can save each other first. Treat yourself, a friend, or a family member with science fiction. Written for adults, but great for ages 11 plus, totally appropriate. Pick up EMBARK Book 1 today on Amazon.com. Available in hardcover, paperback, audiobook, free on Kindle Unlimited, and ebook. If you like your science fiction space opera to be epic, filled with really cool technology, some romance, and a ton of unique action sequences, EMBARK is perfect for you. Thank you so much for checking out the episode. As always, until next week, I hope wherever you are happy, you're healthy, you're safe. God bless, and I'll talk to you then. Bye.
The Force will be with you, always.
My nerd world.